Welcome to the Marketing Mortgages Social for Brokers podcast. Now, today I have with me Dan Knott from Dan Does Mortgages. Now, with nearly 5,000 followers on Instagram, Dan knows how to capitalize on that platform. And after he shared some golden nuggets about Instagram on our podcast 3 years ago, time has absolutely flown by. I knew it was time to get him back on. So today he's going to talk us through how to use social media to start generating leads, how to use Instagram, and how to spot opportunities like getting on podcasts, because there's some high profile podcasts that Dan has been on. And on top of that, he's going to talk about how he manages his business with 2 children under 3, which at the point of recording, he was telling me he has a 7-week-old at the minute. So he's juggling a lot at the minute. But Dan, thank you so much for coming on, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be back.
Thanks, mate. If you're watching us on YouTube, so remember we stream this on YouTube, you'll see that Dan's got a pretty good, I think a really good quality camera, proper mic, headphones. He's got the right setup. And I know exactly why he's done that, because of the quality of the podcast that he's been on. But we're going to get into that shortly. So, Dan, for anybody that doesn't know you, can you give us a bit of a background of how you got into the industry? Because before we came on, you were talking about this was something completely brand new to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I wrote my first mortgage application in December 2020. At the time, absolutely no history in mortgage advice, working in mortgages. I'd never worked in an employed role. I wrote my first application in December 2020, came straight in as a self-employed advisor. The reason I joined the industry was actually a few complications at home with circumstances, the health of my partner. I needed a job that would allow me to, 1, spend a lot of time at home, and 2, hopefully earn enough money that would allow us to maintain a good lifestyle. So the mortgage advice business was sort of hand-picked at that point as something that maybe would allow me to do it. But there was no history in the business. So I first appeared on this podcast within 9 months of writing my first ever mortgage application. So for me, it was I think it was 8 months after the first application, the social media started, and things were a go.
And that's where you just solely focused on Instagram from the beginning. We're going to get into Instagram and how you use it and how you generate leads from it. But why did you choose Instagram over Facebook? Or TikTok would have been a thing then. Why did you choose that instead?
Yeah, so Instagram was the platform that I was most familiar with. TikTok was very new. Facebook, I'd never had a Facebook. I didn't really know my way around. Now, the reason maybe I then sort of double down with the Instagram, continue with the Instagram, is that my business, I work with, my niche is first-time buyers, and I work with first-time buyers nationally. I'm based in the Northeast, but at least half of my clients are from London. I feel like Instagram allows a little bit more of that. That's why I've doubled down. It's great for building relationships with other people in similar industries, or who have similar accounts online, who are maybe based in London or elsewhere. So Instagram's been a good starting place for me.
Awesome. And that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because Facebook is very territorial, Facebook, and it's a great way, I think, if you're starting out, to kind of own your area and own your color in your area, own your brand, and utilize Facebook groups. Instagram is a bit harder if you're starting from zero, which is exactly what you did, but you're reaping the benefits now. So anybody that's listening, if you haven't got any prior experience of social media, I would recommend Facebook. But if you've got some experience of Instagram and you're willing to put the work in, and Dan's going to talk us through exactly how hard it is to get started with Instagram, then go down that Instagram route, because as you say, you can hit a more national market, can't you? Okay, so going away from social media, what does your normal week look like?
Yeah, so at the moment, as mentioned, it's been quite a hectic year. There was a house renovation, and then there's also, we've had our second child. As well as that, the business, we're doing okay. So we've been busier than ever with mortgages. The typical working week, I do keep my week between Monday and Friday. Young family, I simply, for me, I don't work weekends other than half an hour on a Sunday, in which I'll organise the diary for the Monday. It's I typically will look to contribute one day towards content. So
Okay.
one full day towards content for me. Bulk content works best for me. That leaves 4 more days to cover the mortgages, the admin, the insurances, everything else related with the business. I do try and keep it relatively 9 till 5. I do work on a Thursday. I typically work more of a 1 until 9 p.m. That allows for evening calls for my clients. That's something that's worked best for me. Again, just with having a young family, it also frees up a Thursday morning to go to the park, do whatever it might be.
Do the nice
So,
things in life.
Yeah, so the way I look at it is extremely busy Monday to Friday, with the aim of Saturday and Sunday, I don't touch it. Okay, I will respond to WhatsApp messages perhaps, but yeah, I try and keep very strict with working hours.
How do you find that? Because people will be listening to this and going, right, if I'm starting out, I want to offer 7 days a week to clients because don't want to miss any appointments. How hard is it to turn down a Saturday appointment, especially in the beginning when you're starting out and you're like, I need business, but this person can only do a Saturday? Do you try and talk them into a week appointment, or do you just say, by the by, and if you can't see us during the week, then unfortunately we can't see you?
So it was actually Gary Das who made this little change in my business. So for the first year, I was offering Saturday and Sunday appointments, and he simply, it was quite a simple statement of why, and I don't know. And he essentially said, you don't want to be working Saturday and Sundays. In your case, change it Monday to Friday. Be strict with it. Now, I would say one of the main benefits of my social media is that I work with people who want to work with me.
Okay.
And we don't really have much resistance in terms of not being available Saturdays and Sundays. I have, the Calendly, the appointments are available on there. If necessary, I may create an extra evening appointment during the week. But to be honest, don't really have any resistance in terms of Saturday and Sundays. I feel like, for me, it is, I'm trying to, sort of be there for the family, sort of maintain a lifestyle of some sorts. It is just a decision that I had to make, right? Am I cutting off Saturdays and Sundays? May I potentially lose a client? Potentially. However, I feel like that's just part of the business, isn't it?
Okay.
So that's the decision that I made for that
Fair
reason.
enough. That's quite not a strict, sorry, quite a bold decision when you're starting out to say I'm not doing Saturday and Sunday. But I suppose you set a precedent for all your referrals moving forward. They turn around and say, look, Dan doesn't do Saturday and Sunday, but you need to book in with him because he's normally bloody busy Monday to Friday. So I suppose it does set that precedent and creates that scarcity mindset sometimes for clients as well, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I also think that the reality is, if you are still doing Saturday and Sunday appointments and you may be thinking that you don't want to, although clients may absolutely, prefer a Saturday appointment when they're off work, most people will make an adjustment and have a call on the dinner at work. Most people will be willing to make that change, in my experience.
Depends how much they want to deal with you, I suppose, doesn't it? That's
Exactly,
the
yeah.
deciding factor, yeah. Interesting. Okay, so we've talked about what your normal week looks like. You've got space for content, you've got space for admin, appointments, and space for the family as well, which is great. And it sounds like you're very strict for that. With that, what would you say now is the hardest part of running a business?
So the hardest part of running a business. So for me, it's still managing workload. I am still sort of working as a one-man band, so doing the admin, the mortgages, the protection, everything else that comes with it. So it is managing the workload. I am sort of very diary centric. Live by the diary. But yeah, I would say it is managing everything. I did actually make a mistake in my business, which was December last year. I'd really had sort of worked incredibly hard for, around about 2 years at that point. I'd really sort of never really took any time off at all. And December just gone, I decided I was going to take the bulk of December off. And I thought it was, it was all sorted. The bulk of December was booked off. Everything was okay. But the diary maybe wasn't where it should have been. In terms of, clients who needed catch-up calls, etc., from, past clients from the social media. And then in January, I had the busiest month ever in terms of call bookings. So then it sort of it had a knock-on effect where I was maybe a little bit too busy, and I was in a little bit of a hole where I couldn't get out of it for a little while
Wow.
in terms of
So it's
catching up.
almost
So
a good problem to have because you're booking in new clients. But what would you do differently this time then?
yeah, so essentially, I would. So this year, again in December, we're going on holiday. That's the plan. But absolutely everything in the diary needs to be done because January is going to be naturally a busy month because I think that's when a lot of people say, right, in January after Christmas, now we're looking to book a home. Now we're looking to start the house hunt and to get things moving. It is just a mistake. I would always say I was, naturally sort of still quite new to the business,
Yeah.
and these things do happen. Um,
So diarise your follow-ups for a time when you're not on holiday. I think that's the
Absolutely.
key, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And one big change that I make now is I do close my diary quite a lot for bookings.
Okay.
So at the moment, for example, that it's actually closed this week and it's closed next week for new bookings. And that allows me to just make sure that I'm on absolutely on top of everything. All of my current clients are exactly where they need to be. I'm not losing track of anything. And then, the bookings are starting again from the 9th of next month.
Yeah, I did notice that. I looked at your Calendly link and I had a little look, and you couldn't book anything for the
Yeah.
following month. It was similar with us when we had, I think it was a couple of years ago now, we changed all the processes in our business. And I said it was just Sophie and I at the time, and I said, Soph, I'm going to close off to new clients. I don't want to take anyone on when we're doing mid processes. And
Yeah.
it was 2 months, I think, we stopped taking clients on, and all the people that wanted our services waited. And they got to the end and kind of said, look, we do want to deal with it. And you closing off your diary shows that you have respect for your clients because you want to make sure that you're giving the service to your current clients rather than just thinking about brand new ones. So it's almost like taking, 2 steps back to make one forward, or
Absolutely.
whatever it might be.
It's just avoiding overwhelm, because overwhelm has a knock-on effect in all areas.
Yeah.
It's a luxury to be able to do that. But again, hopefully people do wait 2 weeks. But if not, these are just the decisions that sometimes you have to make sure that the clients that you are working with have the best possible experience.
For their appointment. Okay, fab. So before we get onto the social media section, which I'm dying to talk to you about, this is a question that a lot of our LinkedIn audience wanted us to start asking guests. What is your favorite tool to run your business?
Mine is Calendly linked with
Okay.
the Outlook. So a combination of the two. I think, my first year in the business, I wasn't using Calendly. I hadn't really heard of Calendly. I've never been introduced to it. And it was sort of more of a pen and paper, Excel spreadsheet, that sort of approach. But
Yeah.
Calendly linked with the Outlook, it helps so much. It helps, your diary is there in black and white. As well as that, it's more professional to be able to say to a client, this is my availability. There's the diary,
Yeah.
book in for a time and day that works for you. And then I'm looking forward to having that chat. Calendly linked with Outlook. Absolutely.
Number one. And when Dan says link with Outlook, so Calendly is an online booking software. And what you can do is in your Outlook calendar, link it to Calendly. And then in your Outlook calendar, you can block things out on your Outlook calendar. So it might be dentist from 10 till 12. And then you book out whatever you want and it links up with Calendly. So nobody can book in your time. Then when they do book an appointment, it gets automatically added to your Outlook calendar and added to your client's calendar. So it can all be automated in the background. It is such a time saver, isn't it? Awesome.
Absolutely no-brainer.
Okay, social media. First question is, we've talked about Instagram and why you chose Instagram, but how long do you spend creating content for your social media channels?
So I would say it's roughly 1 hour a day. But
Okay.
I may choose to do that as doing 1 day of social media content. So get it all done in 1 day. So that may be filming videos, editing videos, interacting online, all of that sort of stuff. I would say about 1 hour per working day.
And that's why you have pretty much a Monday to do content, because you've got
Yeah.
7 hours will cover you for the week. Okay. So we're creating that content. Before we go any further, actually, what percentage of leads come from your Instagram?
100%. in
100%.
some way. In some way. A good point to make is that maybe a change that I've had over the last 3 years compared to the last time I recorded a podcast with yourself. I now view my Instagram as more of a landing page rather than outreach. So
Right.
anybody I'm working with, they will at some point go through the Instagram. If I speak to somebody on the street, here's my Instagram. Have a look. There's a booking link on there. Have a look at the clients I've worked with. Have a look at the podcasts I've appeared on. Get to know me. See if you want to work with me. Even, having a relationship with an estate agent, that developed through the Instagram. So everything in some way comes through the Instagram.
I like the way that you use. I think that's going to be the title of this podcast, actually, using your Instagram as a landing page, because everything you do is through your Instagram. And the reason I wanted people to listen to how many leads what percentage of leads you generate, is because what we're going to talk about now, the content creation system and the processes, that shows how powerful it is. So by doing exactly what Dan's going to talk about today, you can generate all your business through Instagram. So we're spending 1 hour a day, essentially, on social media. Where do you get your content ideas from for these Instagram videos, or you've got photos of clients? Talk us through how you come up with content ideas.
Okay, so I was looking forward to this question because on the initial podcast, when I'd only been in the industry nine months, I mentioned that when I first joined the mortgage industry, I wrote up 6 months of content ideas to post every day for 6 months. And I'm still using that today. I'm still recycling it. I'm still going round and round in circles, using the same content in terms of ideas. So I will be reshooting content. I might be rewording content. I might be updating it, but it's all the same stuff. I would say probably 1 in 8 posts that I do is something to do with a lifetime ISA.
Really?
I post about the lifetime ISA constantly. Why? Because I work primarily with first-time buyers. Most of them have a lifetime ISA. Having a lifetime ISA is quite an interesting or an exciting part of the process. Opening that, paying your money in each month. I'm sort of my Instagram.
Why do you recycle it? Sorry, let me ask you, why do you not just post about it once today and then don't post it again?
Because you shouldn't assume that everybody who follows you is going to see every post. As that, we are mortgage advisors. We aren't the be-all and end-all of somebody's day. If somebody sees a lifetime ISA post 1 week, they're not going to mind if they see another one 3 weeks later. So just keep putting it out. That is what people are interested in. So my 6-month spreadsheet, the same topics are coming out again and again and again. Now, a good point that I would like to mention is that your marketing is genuinely something that is a little bit of an inspiration for me, and I'll explain why, which links back to that point. So there's a lot of people who do essentially what you do for different industries on LinkedIn, but their LinkedIn posts might be, we increased our clients' engagement by 112.67%. We increased the reach by 75.67%. Now, somebody who uses your services probably doesn't know what that even means. It's quite intimidating. It's a lot of information to take on. And it doesn't say what you actually do. Like, what do you actually do to make that happen? Now, I'll oversimplify this to make a point, so don't take it the wrong way. But your marketing, especially a couple of years ago, was always quite centered around, we know mortgages, we take your branding, we make some Canva posts, we'll schedule them for you, we'll post them for you. The marketing was very sort of low level in concept and principle.
Yep.
If
Done
that makes
for
sense.
you service. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. So for me, sometimes I see advisors and they're posting about, the interest rates in New Zealand and how the global economy is going to impact the mortgage market. I don't think my home buyers care or that they want to know that. Point. I think they want to know, Dan's a mortgage advisor. Is he a good lad? Does he know what he's doing? Lifetime ISAs, I've got one of them. He talks about them all the time. Does he submit applications and have them accepted for people like me? I keep my content intentionally, what I would describe as very low level and very simplified, but it's intentional for that reason.
I love that. Just keep it so simple. Do you know what I mean? If there's so many companies that do it so well, and especially when you're offering a service, you need to simplify it because you haven't got a tangible product to sell. So with a mortgage advisor, what do? We search the market for you to try and find you a better deal. And be there throughout the whole process. And like you say, if you can create content that resonates with your audience and talks to them on their level, what is a lifetime ISA? As you said, I've got one of those. One of the best performing videos we do for our clients is how much can I borrow? That's what everybody wants to know. And don't go into detail on a video if you do it. Don't say, okay, so what you've got to think about it all depends on your expenditure and your assets. And what we need to do is to work out your income and how that is offset against how much you expend. No, 4.5 times your income normally. Wow.
Yeah.
I can work that out. That's so simple compared to like you talking about how the Canadian base rate is going to affect economy in the UK over the next 12 months. People aren't interested, are they?
They're not, and they don't understand it, and it becomes intimidating. I don't know what he's talking about. Do I really want to talk with him? He seems, am I sort of, if I'm talking about swap rates constantly, and they're thinking, I don't even know what a swap rate is. I've never heard of a swap rate. Do I want to talk to him? It all seems a bit intimidating. Am I sort of, are we on the same level with what we're doing here? No, so yeah, but genuinely your content, I see people doing the same as you, and I think, I've seen 100 of your posts, and I don't actually know what you do.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because people are trying to overcomplicate the offering, aren't they?
Yeah. In my opinion,
it's the same as if I was choosing a car garage and they said to me, MOT 50 quid. I know what I'm getting.
Yeah.
It says, right, we're going to do an oil change with a specific type of oil. We're checking your brake calipers and everything. I'm like, I'm too stupid for that. I'm just going to go with the bloke that says MOT for 50 quid because that's my level. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's a good example too. So that's exactly my thought process with content.
When you're creating content. Okay, so, please, if you are listening to this, go and check out Dan Does Mortgages Instagram and you'll see exactly what I mean. You answer questions that people want the answers to. They're you know what I mean? They're very simple questions to follow, and you answer them in a way that people can understand. Have you got any top tips when you're creating those reels? Because you get a lot of engagement with them, you get people liking them. What tips would you give to somebody that's saying, right, I'm going to start recording my first reel today? What would you say, Dan?
I would say, so a lot of people ask me, how do I edit videos? And I always say, if you download CapCut on your phone, if you're just starting out, if you download CapCut and if you spend 1 hour a night for 5 nights, just messing about with it, editing the videos of your family, it doesn't have to be a mortgage video, get some clips of the kids in, edit them, mess about with it a little bit. If you do that for 1 hour a night for 5 nights, by the end of it, you'll be able to edit a good mortgage video. So I always say I personally use CapCut and I use captions. That's essentially what I've always used. I try and keep it short. When I'm editing videos, one thing I do is I cut out any delays so that the video is very snappy. And I use those
the pro
programs.
version of CapCut.
I'll be honest, I don't even know. Maybe
because
not.
I've started using the pro version and it gets rid of the ums and the ahs for you.
All right, okay.
You can right click on it, remove filler words, and it cuts out all the blank spaces.
All right, well, I never knew that.
So it saves you doing it manually, something like that. But yeah, I would echo exactly what Dan says. CapCut is a fantastic app on your phone that's completely free. Have a little play with it.
In terms of editing videos as well, because sometimes I see people sort of try and reel off a full paragraph in one go to try and get a video out, and I find that quite hard. One thing I do, and I've done for a long, long time now, if I script a post, and let's say it's got 10 lines, I will say 2 lines at a time and then stop. So I nail the 2 lines, stop, what's my next 2 lines, read those 2 lines, then cut out the gap in the middle. That allows me to just get it done. Quick edit and out. That's the way that works best for me.
That's a great way of doing it. And what Dan said there is carry on the recording. Don't press stop. Just carry on the recording and then cut out the bits. That's where CapCut the Pro, I think it's $10 a month. You right click, remove filler, and it will get rid of all those dead spots for you. Save you a bit of time. Okay, so we talked about the reels. We've talked about how to shoot them, how to edit them. The other part of your Instagram that you do very, very well is to appear on other podcasts. So, for example, can you talk to us about Claire Barrett and what podcast she does?
Yeah, so Claire is the host of Financial Times Money Clinic, of which in the finance space is a relatively big or successful podcast. I've been on her podcast twice now, once remotely, once in the Financial Times offices or headquarters in London. So in terms of appearing on podcasts, so when I first appeared on your podcast again, I mentioned that it was intentional for me to try and sort of be involved with the financial influencer space. And that's something that was sort of I targeted straight away, and something that has really, really worked for my business. A lot of these financial influencers now have podcasts. Now, I'll give sort of a well-rounded summary of how I appear on these podcasts. My aim is always to appear on as many podcasts as possible and essentially get the reps in. So, for example, this podcast, in terms of for my actual business and lead generation, there's not really going to be any benefit because it's a mortgage broker-centric podcast. But I come on it to sort of stay fresh, stay confident, and to sort of maintain my ability to come on these podcasts and have a chat like this, because it can be quite hard. So with that, initially I appeared on as many podcasts as possible. Anybody who would have me, I will send messages to people who have podcasts asking to be on their podcast. Now, awesome. I will say, I'm Dan, I'm a mortgage advisor. These are the podcasts I've appeared on so far, provide a link, and then suggest a topic for their podcast.
Oh, okay,
so I can say you've spoke about these things, but you've not spoken about the first-time buyer market. I'd love to jump on and have a chat with you. Many people will say no, some will say yes. Okay. Now, the more of these podcasts that you then build up, the more podcasts you're going to be able to get onto. Because if somebody has a relatively successful podcast already, they want, if they're choosing a guest, they want to see that they're choosing somebody who's done it before and they can do it. They can come onto a microphone and speak about the mortgage market quite confidently. I try and appear on as many podcasts as possible.
So what I like that you spoke about there is you're creating opportunities for yourself, because I'll be honest, Dan messaged me 3 years ago and was like, I want to appear on podcasts. Now, for me as a podcast host, I don't, that saves me a job of going out to try and find people that want to be on there or are a bit apprehensive of doing it, whereas Dan is asking people to do it. So Dan obviously does it on a national scale, and being on the Money Clinic podcast, like the posts, if you go and have a look at his posts on his channel, they get so much interaction, these do, from people that follow the Money Clinic. He can then pull those followers over to his account, so it's great for growth. But the other thing that it does is positions him as a specialist. Now, say if you're just starting out, yes, you can try and get to the big podcast, but I would go and ask if there's any local podcasts that you can get on, if there's any industry podcast that you can get on. Don't think about it as, I need to get on a podcast to generate business. You need to get on a podcast to increase your exposure. That's what I would say. And it gives you great content back for your channels then, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I've done, all of the local podcasts, that aren't finance related. I've messaged people and say, can I jump on your podcast? And it's all experience, it's all exposure. And if nothing else, it's a well-recorded, especially an in-person podcast, it's a well-recorded professional piece of content that can then go on your page. It's typically very high quality. So yeah, and as an example, so I have done quite a few successful podcasts now, which are relatively big. It's not Diary of a CEO, but for our space, for me as a mortgage advisor, they're quite good podcasts.
Yeah.
But I do smaller podcasts. So for example, I did a podcast around about 2 years ago, of which was for teachers. It was a teacher-specific podcast, and I asked to go on to speak about mortgages for teachers. Tiny podcast. I went on again to get the reps in and increase my experience of podcasting. Now, nothing came back from that until 3 weeks ago. Somebody contacted me from that podcast 2 years ago, and they're now a client. Podcasts have an incredible lifespan. So that's another benefit of them.
Very, very similar story. I went on a Cord Mortgages podcast in 2020, and I still get people message me now saying, fantastic, can I speak to you about social media? It's what we're talking about here, Dan and I, being on podcasts. it's exactly the same as social media. You're not going to put one episode out or one social media post out and see a direct return straight away. Or you can't quantify it, you can't put a number on it on how effective that podcast episode or that social post has been. What you will do is 6-12 months down the line, it gives you exposure that can increase the chances of that person or somebody getting in touch with you to book an appointment. I could speak about social media all day, but I think we'd be here for hours. So before we get into the strategy question, we donate £10 to a charity of your choice to say thank you for coming on. Which charity did you want us to make the donation to, Daniel?
So if you could make the donation to Space Northeast, which is a men's mental health charity, sort of combating loneliness, anxiety, depression for men in the Northeast by creating a space to walk, move, socialise.
Fantastic. And that's run by one of your friends, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, so it's a lad I've known for many years. Yeah, so he went through his own problems, since set up that charity a few years ago. Yeah, he's helping a lot of people.
Awesome. We will make the donation for you. Fab. Right then. So we're going to pretend that you've moved to the north of Scotland. You've got a laptop, a mobile phone, and an internet connection. What would you do to start generating new mortgage business?
I'd begin establishing and chasing meaningful connections as soon as possible. So whether that is out there in the community, if you have a niche, if you are looking to work with doctors or medical professionals, go to the local hospital, speak with them in some way, hold a talk, all of those sorts of things. As well as that, do the same online. For me, it's intentional connections. Who do I want to work with? Why do I want to work with them? Contact enough people. And if you contact enough people, there'll be a large enough percentage who do want to work with you naturally.
I like that, intentional connections, because a lot of people that have come on this podcast, and we're not saying any ways right or wrong, get out into the local community, introduce yourself, cast your net as wide and as far as possible. What you're saying is, right, get that fishing rod and go for that direct, what did you say? Relationship. Try and get that intentional relationship with one specific set of people. I suppose you become the specialist then, don't you?
And when building relationships, a big thing that I think about is think about what's in it for them, not what's in it for you. Realistically, is there anything in it for them when working with you in some way? And that's something I always think about, for example, again, with the podcasting, what's in it for them, and go from there.
Love it. That's the perfect end to the podcast, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on. Where's best for people to connect with you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so my Instagram page is at @DanDoesMortgages_. It's Dan Knott on LinkedIn. And yeah, they may be the two main pages.
Perfect. And it's Dan Knott, which is surname is Knott. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cheers.